because we are starting a brand new sermon series this week. And this week and for the next 4 weeks, we're going to be in this sermon series called God's Great Gift. God's Great Gift. And we're going to be talking about the family. Because the family is God's great gift. The family wasn't an accident. It isn't a mistake of biology. It isn't just something that happened. It isn't a social construction. It wasn't a group of people who got together in a room and circled up and said, let's have a family be a thing. Yeah, let's have that be a thing. No, that's not how family came about. That's not how it works. The family was designed by God. The family was a gift from God for you and for this world. In fact, early on, in the very beginning of our Bibles in Genesis chapter 1, God says, it says this, so God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. That when God made us, he didn't make one of us, and he didn't make 20 of us. He made a man and woman. He made a family, and he told them, have children. He designed the family. The family was always a part of the plan. In fact, the Apostle Paul in the New Testament, in the book of Ephesians, he's writing there, and he says this in chapter 3 and verse 14. He says, for this reason I kneel before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and on earth derives its name. Every family has its genesis, its starting point in God. Because your family isn't an accident. It wasn't your own idea. It was God's. The family is God's great gift. But as I'm saying this, as these words are coming out of my mouth right now, and as I'm talking about the greatness of the family and how it's God's great gift to us, how it's designed by God, some of you are saying, well, I think I missed that present. That some of you are saying, they're sitting there saying, well, if the family is God's great gift, why does mine feel like a great big pain? Right? If this is all like God's idea, why does mine not seem to line up with that? Surely God's ideas are good, and I look around at my family and, I'm not so sure. Why is mine such a great big pain if it's supposed to be God's great gift? Anybody dread going to family reunions? Anybody not maybe have the fondest, most affectionate feelings when going over to the in-laws? Maybe not even the in-laws. How about your own parents coming down to stay for a few days? Anybody dreaded that? I don't want mom and dad to be down here for the weekend or whatever. I'm not looking forward to that. There are so many people that we know, and probably people in this room, who don't have the best family experiences. And beyond just maybe not quite getting along and maybe getting under each other's skins, even the next step, one step further, some people can't put up with their family at all. There are people we know, and probably people in this room, who are part of families that don't speak to each other, where the mom and the father don't speak to the son or the daughter, where siblings don't talk, where there's so much anger, where any time the family comes up, there's just this sense of pain that rises up in your heart because you're a part of a family that causes you so much hurt. That when other people think about family, they've got pictures in their homes and they go on family vacations and they take trips. But for you, that's not the case. No. For you, when family comes up, it's a source of hurt. It's a source of pain. And you don't want to talk about your family or think about your family or be with your family. If the family is God's great gift, why is it for so many people it seems like a source of great pain in their lives? Part of the problem is that everyone has a family. And yet no two families are exactly the same. And that's part of the problem, right? If you're learning how to drive a car, okay, I may not have ever been in your car before, but as long as it's the same kind of car like mine, as long as you're not driving stick and I'm not or something, I can sit there and I can give you detailed instructions and you can drive the car, okay? You can make it go. If I were to sit there and you were to tell me about what's going on in your family and I were to give you some kind of advice, part of the problem comes from this simple fact that anything anyone tells you, anything anyone says, well, here's what I always do, it will never work exactly the same in your family because your family isn't like theirs. It'll always come out a little different. Because even though every single person in here has a family, no two of them are the exact same. You could find the thickest, most comprehensive book on family there is. 10,000 pages. You could read the last page, close the back cover, look up, and watch your family do something that wasn't in the book. because no two families are exactly the same. And part of our problem simply comes from this, that when something happens in our family, when there's some sense of sort of tension or drama or mistake, and we go to others for help, their help can only get us so far because it won't work exactly like it does in their family. That's part of the difficulty of family. But really the problem is this. The bigger problem is this, that we tend to build our families around contracts. That's the bigger part of the problem, is we tend to build our families around a contract. A contract is something, a piece of paper, usually a set of rules that everyone agrees on, everyone signs their name to. And what a contract ultimately is this idea that this is my part, this is my portion, this is what I'll contribute to the family. This is what I'll contribute to the family. I'll do my part, you do your part. We'll all sign our name, we'll all put our name on here. This is what Cody's responsible for, this is what Tiffany's responsible for. This is what I'm responsible for, this is what this is what the kids, we're all going to sign and agree to this set of rules, this set of contributions, and we're all going to be a part of this family. And we all sign this central contract. A lot of families tend to be that way because that's just kind of our natural tendency. I'll do my part, you do your part, we'll all kind of just chip in and we'll make this family work. The problem is that contractual families produce referees, where you get everybody in the family watching you to see when you'll mess up, to see when you'll cross the line. Here's the rules, and everyone's agreed to the rules, and so everyone's waiting for when the rules will be broken, about when it's going to be time. And if maybe you've been a part of a family like this, or maybe you've just seen families like this, where it seems like everyone in the family is simply waiting for someone else to make a mistake. These families are families where there's always one person out. There's always one black sheep. It might rotate, it might always be the same person, but everyone's just waiting for that mistake. It produces a group of referees. A contractual family is a reactive family. A contract produces a family where I'll do my part if you are doing yours. I'll contribute and I'll do what I'm supposed to do as long as you're doing yours. But when you quit doing your part, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to quit doing my part. See, when we got married, we agreed that there would be things that we would both do. You would do your things as the wife, I would do my things as the husband. And recently, you haven't been living up to your end of the contract. And if you're not going to do what you're supposed to do, if you're not going to do what we agreed you would do, then I'm not going to do my part either. See, a contract makes for a reactive family. You agreed that we all signed this contract that said, me and mom are in charge. And you used to do that, but you haven't been doing that anymore. Mom, Dad, we signed a contract that said you would care about me. And you used to do that, but I don't know if you care about me as much anymore. And if you're not going to do your part, then I'm not going to do my part. A contractual family is a reactive family. Ultimately, what a contract-based family relation system does is it creates a group of people who, when they sense danger, they lean back. They step back. When I feel like you're not living up to what you're supposed to be doing, when I feel like you're letting down your end, I'm going to take a step back. Which, of course, leads you to take another step back and leads me to take another step back. And over and over and over again. Does this family sound good to anyone else? I mean, does this sound appealing? Is this the kind of family that anybody wants? A family where everyone's waiting for someone to make a mistake? A family where certain people are in and certain people are out? A family where I'll do my part if you do your part? And if you can't keep your end of the deal, then why in the world would I keep my end of the deal? I mean, it doesn't sound very appealing to me, and yet it's a family, even though I don't think anybody wants that. I don't think there's anybody out there that's like, man, I wish my family was more like that. I don't think that that's a reality. I think we want something else. But the truth is that some of us are part of families like that. Even though we don't want it, we still are. And it's one of those weird things where I don't want it to be like this, and yet it is, and I don't want it to be like this, and I know I'm part of the problem. And the reason so many of us gravitate towards this family based on a contract is because a contract is really built there for me. It keeps me safe. It outlines exactly what I need to do. And it makes sure I don't overwork myself. You do your part, I do my part. We'll make it all even. We'll square it all away. You do your part, I do my part. A contract family is nothing that we want, and yet we gravitate towards it so easily. It becomes a reality in our lives so often. I don't know what your family looks like. Maybe you're part of a family like this, where everyone's always checking up on each other, where everyone's always accusing each other of breaking the rules, of doing this, of going too far, where it feels like that you know that if you were to make a mistake, mom or dad would take a step back from you. Where you had this sense, and of course no one ever says this, but you have this sense that they won't love me as much if I don't measure up to the standard. Maybe that was your reality in your family. Maybe that is your reality in your family. But let me tell you, that's not the way God built it. That's not God's design for family. If you're one of those people who looks around your family and you say, hey, if God built this, then why is mine not working? And the reason is because we're not working it the way God built it. God's design for family is something much different than that. God made the family in his image. You notice that in the verse that we read, God made mankind in his image. He made man and woman in his image. He built this family to function the way he functions with his family. And so the question we need to ask is, if our families aren't maybe operating right, then where do we look to? What do we do about that? And the answer is we look to God, because God built family in his image. So how does God deal with his family? And the answer is he deals with his family not through contracts, but through covenants. That's how God deals with his family. Not through contracts, but through covenants. Covenants are different than contracts, and they're kind of a weird word. It's not a word we use anywhere else, right? Like, you have to sign contracts all the time for work, or when you make a big purchase, or when you guys sign all kinds of contracts in your normal life. No one asks you to sign a covenant, right? No one comes to you and says, hey, we're going to covenant right now. That's not something that's normal. A covenant's different than a contract, though. In a contract, both parties come together and they agree that they'll do their part. They sign this kind of, here's the agreement, and we'll both contribute to it. In a covenant, both parties commit to the relationship 100%. See, a covenant's different than a contract. A contract says, here's my portion I will provide in exchange for your portion that you will provide, and I promise to do my part. In a covenant, both parties say, I'm all in, period. I'm all in, period. I'm here. I'm committed to the relationship 100%. And you know what? We should break things up. Here's kind of what I'm good at. Here's what you're good at. But if you aren't doing what you're supposed to do, I'm still going to be here. Because a covenant is different than a contract. I'm all in, period. In fact, we get this perfect example when we talk about the way families are supposed to relate to one another, and that the best way to do this, the best way to figure this out, is to look at the way God relates to his family. There's this perfect example of this in the story of Noah. Most of us know the story of Noah. I mean, even if you're not someone who regularly goes to church, if you visited church just like 2 times when you were a kid, I bet you one of those times was about Noah, right? Which is, on a side note, that's really weird, right? That Noah is a children's story. It's a flood that wipes out all life on the planet. But we have this water picture and a cartoon boat and 2 giraffe necks sticking out, and we're like, the flood, here it is. And so anyway, most of us know the story of Noah, right? Most of us know God saves Noah and his family and all these animals on this boat, and the flood comes and it goes. And after the flood, there's this really interesting thing that happens. In Genesis chapter 9, the flood is over, and starting in verse 8 and 9, this is what happens. It says, then God said to Noah, oh, I told Jim the wrong verses. It's 8 and 9. That first verse is irrelevant. Chapter 9, starting in verse 8. It says, then God said to Noah and to his sons with him, in verse 9, I now establish my covenant with you and with your descendants after you. So after the flood's over, God comes to Noah and his sons, and he says, hey, Noah, you and your family, I'm going to make a covenant with you. I'm going to be in a relationship with you now. And here's the really neat thing about this story. Not 10 generations later, not in the next book, not 10 chapters later, the next event in the story. God comes to Noah and his sons and says, with you and your sons and with their sons, with all your descendants, I'm going to make a covenant. The next event that happens, Noah builds a vineyard so he can get drunk, makes wine, gets drunk on it, gets so plastered he passes out naked in his tent. His son comes to see him, thinks it's hilarious, goes and gets his other sons so they can come and they can all laugh at their naked, drooling father, okay? That's the next event that happens. God goes, I'm going to make a covenant with you. Then dad passes out on the couch naked, and his son comes and takes a picture of it and posts it on Instagram and says, LOL, okay? That's the next thing that happens. Now, I don't know if your family's that messed up. Maybe they are. But this family was. And God had just made a covenant with him. And of course, we're all saying, okay, God, you got to get out of there, right? Like, this isn't the family you thought it was, right? This isn't the group you want to be in a relationship with. Clearly, they are not holding up their end of the deal, right? God Almighty, perfect, holy, purity itself says, I'm going to enter into a relationship with you. And then that happens. But God doesn't leave. God says, hey, I'm in this. Because see, a covenant, holding up your end of the covenant isn't dependent on what others do. Amen. So here's the deal. In your own personal life, God has made a promise to love you. He's always going to love you. Does that mean aren't any consequences for actions? No. There's still consequences for decisions you make. There's still consequences for mistakes, for accidents, for sin. There's consequences in your life. But no matter what that decision is, no matter how bad it is, God said, hey, I'm still going to be here, and I'm still going to love you. I'm always going to love you. In fact, you can say no to God 1,000 times, and after 1,000 times, if you're saying, God, I'm done, I'm tired, no, I don't want you, God's going to say, okay, you don't have to have me, but I want you to know I still love you. That's how God relates to his family. That even if the next thing is as crazy and out there as you can imagine, God sticks around. Can you imagine what a family built on covenant would look like? Can you imagine what kind of family that would be? Can you imagine the gift to your spouse that would be, to have a marriage built on covenant? Can you imagine the gift to your husband, to your wife? Can you imagine the incredible gift that would be to know that no matter what you do and no matter what mistakes you make, I will always love you? Am I going to be happy about some of those? No. Are we going to be argument-free? Of course not. But I will always love you no matter what. No matter what, I will be here because I am 100% committed to the relationship. It's not 50-50. It's not you keep your end, I'll keep my end. It's not you stay pretty and I'll be here. You stay funny and I'll be here. You don't change and I'll be here. It's not if you change, I'll keep here. It's not if you become successful, or it's not if you have time for me. No. I'm committed. Do you imagine the gift to your spouse that would be if you could say, I'm going to be covenanted with you? Can you imagine the gift from God that would be to your children? To know that no matter what they do, mom and dad will still love me. That if they get straight A's, mom and dad will still love me. And if I get straight F's, mom and dad will still love me. If you come home with straight F's, are there going to be consequences? Sure. You're going to spend a little more time doing homework. You're going to spend a little less time doing whatever else you were doing. But I still love you. And in fact, I wouldn't love you more if you got straight A's. Can you imagine that no matter the reason that you're coming to me, whether it's with a joy that you have or whether it's with something bad that you did, to know that son and daughter know that mom and dad will always love me. Can you imagine the gift that would be to your children? Can you imagine the gift that family would be if it was run the way that God intended it to run? That it's a group of people who have covenanted together, to be together, to promise to love each other no matter what. Can you imagine the gift that would be to your neighbors, to your friends, to the people you interact with? To have a family that was that committed. Can you imagine the gift that would be to our community if our families were that committed, that they covenanted with each other? Do you see how God's great gift might just be the family if it worked the way that God intended it to? So here's the deal. God asked for, he intended the family to be a gift. He intended it to covenant. To be built on covenant, not on contract, not on you do your part, I'll do my part, but I'm all in. I'm here 100%. Now, I don't know what kind of family you're a part of. Maybe as I'm talking, you're like, man, yeah, covenant, that sounds like my mom and dad. That sounds like how we've agreed. That sounds like me and my spouse. That sounds like me and my kids. I don't know what kind of family you're a part of. Maybe that doesn't. Maybe the other one sounds a little bit more like you guys, where it's a little more contractual based, where it's a little more, you keep your end and I'll keep up my end. Maybe your family has this sense where when danger comes up, when something happens, you kind of lean out, kind of lean back, lean away. If that's the case, here's what needs to happen. First of all, you need to recognize that that's the case and ask yourself, am I part of the problem? Am I part of the problem? Am I part of what's creating this contract environment? Am I part of what's creating this negativity? Am I part of what's creating this problem in my family? Am I part of that? Is that part of my fault? And then the next thing you need to do is you need to be the one to covenant. See, we look at these two families and we go, one of them's clearly better than the other, and no one really wants to be a part of this contract-based family. I want to be a part of a covenant-based family. But then the covenant way of thinking, the contract way of thinking sneaks into our heads. If you do what you need to do, I'll do what I need to do, sneaks its way into our thoughts. And we say, I'm a part of a contract. I want to be a part of a covenant. I don't want to be a part of this family anymore. I want to change my family, and I'm ready to do it when you are. I'm ready to change this family. I'm ready to turn it around. I'm ready to transform it into a place of commitment and love. And I'm ready whenever you guys are. That can't be the case. If you want to be a part of a family that's covenanted, if you look around and you think, man, I think our family is kind of more of a contract than a covenant, it has to start with you. It has to start with you saying, okay, from now on, I'm not going to let what you do determine my love. I'm not going to let what you do determine my commitment. I'm all in. Will your family members instantly respond to that? Maybe, maybe not. But you can't base a covenant relationship on, hey, when you guys are ready for this kind of relationship, I'll start. No, it's got to start with you. If you want that for your family, if you want the family that God designed, if you want the gift of God's family, it's got to start right here, right now, this morning. When you walk out those doors, just deciding, all right, I don't know what other people are going to do, but as for me, I'm all in. God gave us the family. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a mistake. It was a design. It was supposed to be a gift for you, for your neighbors, and for the whole world. But you got to be ready for it. Are you going to contract or are you going to covenant? God's gift only works when you do it one way. Which way are you going to do it? Let's pray. God, we love you. We thank you so much for everything that you've given us. You've provided us with so many blessings. God, right now this morning, I pray that as we take a look at our families, that we might see the way that we relate to each other. That, God, that we might realize that maybe the problems we're having are because we've based it on this very self-centered, this very selfish way of thinking of, if you do what you're supposed to do, I'll do what I'm supposed to do. God, that way might be easier and it might be more about me, but God, it just doesn't work. It does not work. God, I pray right now that we might be able to look to you for our example. That, God, the way that you have dealt with us, the way that you have continued to love and be there for us no matter what we've done, God, I pray that we might do that with our families as well. God, help us to be a covenant people. God, I pray that if we take the step to do that, I pray that if we begin to have those relationships in our family, God, I pray that you bless that step. That, God, that you return those relationships back to us. That, God, that you work through each and every one of us here to transform the families, our families, to transform them into the gift that they were supposed to be. God, we love you, and we know that if we can create, if we can work for the way that you designed family to operate, that, God, not only will that be a gift for me, will it be a gift for our marriages, for our children, for our parents, but God, it will be a gift for our entire world. God, we pray this in Jesus' name.